What is up, my Pantheon people? Welcome back to yet another community watch party for a Pantheon developer update stream. Woo, this is a weird one. We're going up on a Wednesday here. I know this is very impromptu. This is a surprise stream for all of you who are jumping on the opportunity. Welcome. See Reasonable Person, Nerds Aaron, Jintaki already in here. Good to have you. So what's going on? Let me tell you. Last week, Pantheon did their monthly development update stream as usual, and that one was on the crafting and gathering systems. A lot of updates that have occurred to those systems. I was planning on doing a watch party the day after, like I normally have been doing for many months now. But my life outside of Pantheon has just been super busy lately. With work and other things, like good things though. A lot of exciting advancements and stuff outside of Pantheon that have been taking my time and attention lately. And which, by the way, is not the first time that has happened, that I've kind of put had to put Pantheon on the back burner a little bit in my mind, because, you know, over the course of the 7 years now that I've been following Pantheon, almost exactly 7 years actually, you know, sometimes sometimes things ebb and flow, and you know, and I adjust accordingly, for whatever the time is. So, lately, you know, there hasn't, to be honest, been a whole heck of a lot of stuff going on with Pantheon updates that have not nothing, but certainly not enough to really captivate my attention or my time that I would use to, you know, normally produce content on that sorts of things. So, you know, I don't expect that to last forever, but I'm just kind of in a little bit of a downswing currently as far as the time that I can commit to following Pantheon. But so I was going to do the watch party last week. Something came up. I had to delay it. And so here we are. I do have a little bit of time here this afternoon to just settle in and chill out with all you, and do get caught up on what I missed, because there is a solid, looks like it's about a 49-minute video on crafting and gathering updates that I have still not watched. I haven't seen a second of it. So that's what we're going to do today. So again, this VR put this out last week, so I'm a little bit behind on this one. But if I remember correctly, they're also going to be doing Parting the Veil live. They're going to be doing that tomorrow, actually. So if the schedule allows, I will be doing a watch party for that as well on the day after, like normal. Try to get back on track here. Try to get back in the groove. So I know there's been too long of a gap in between since we've been together, especially since in February, if I remember correctly, the devs didn't do a Parting the Veil. Normally we have 2 watch parties a month. They only had 1 last month. And then I'm late on this one, so it feels like it's been so long. It's been an eternity since I've been able to hang out with you guys. So, there is that. But rest assured, I am planning on having not very long of a gap until we can get back together. Just a couple days, we'll reconvene here for Parting the Veil. But today, we're talking crafting and gathering, which seems to be one of VR's big focuses right now, getting crafting and gathering ready for alpha. So we're going to see what they got, see what the Master Crafter Nefel has in store for us. What's new with you guys? What's new with you? Have you guys been as busy as I have been? What's up, Twisted Pixels? Archbishops, I am alive. I know. It's been a while, but here I am. I'm alive. A little worse for wear though, not gonna lie. I have an ear infection right now, so I can like barely hear out of this ear. I like wrenched my neck last night. So my neck is kind of sore. I've been doing a lot of what's taken up my time lately as I've been training in martial arts, particularly jujitsu, which has been super, super fun and really interesting. It's I never realized how mental of a sport jujitsu is. It's like its own little physical chess game with your body. And it's pretty awesome, not gonna lie. I've been really, really enjoying digging into that. So it's also been a great source of just exercise and getting into shape. And but last night kind of hurt my neck, but whatever. Jinchaki, you went to Japan? That sounds awesome. Or are you going to Japan? Japan seems awesome. I would love to go to Japan. Oh, you're going in May. Nice. Getting ready. Have you been there before, or is this like your first time? I would love to visit Japan sometime. Nerds Aaron's playing Last Epic. And did Muay Thai. I did Muay Thai myself. It was a few years ago at this point that I did that. I really enjoyed that too. I did that solidly for maybe like a year and a half. I did Muay Thai. That also is a really good, just fun workout. I did enjoy it, but I think actually, I think I'm actually better suited for jujitsu now that I start to understand it better and get into it. Not only just mentally, but even physically too. Like the thing that has just absolutely captivated me about jujitsu is how it's really designed to allow somebody of a smaller stature to be able to control somebody who's much bigger and stronger than them by just using the proper techniques to exploit the skeleton and the structure that every human being has. If you understand how limbs work and how muscles work, you can exploit those with honestly pretty minimal effort. So that's what I mean about you can almost kind of approach it like a puzzle that just needs to be solved. So, and that's what's so fascinating to me, looking at it that way. And also as somebody who, I'm not a particularly huge person. I'm pretty average build, and in the past, I would have been very intimidated by anybody who was much bigger than me. But now even I've only been doing jujitsu for a few months now, and obviously, I still have a lot to learn. But I'm already starting to see the ways how, even against somebody much bigger than you, if you use the proper techniques, you can really gain control of them. And it's like magic. It doesn't seem possible, but it is. It's pretty awesome. Whereas when I was doing Muay Thai, I was pretty good. I mean, I was pretty fast, but I just wasn't as suited for that, the kicks and stuff like that. Just didn't really have quite the proper build to really like excel at it. But, With me, I have kind of like longer limbs and pretty flexible, and that sort of thing when you're grappling on the ground, um, really comes in handy. So I've been enjoying that. Nerds Aaron says, yeah, BJJ is what I would do if I actually wanted to learn self-defense. Yeah, I think that's a good call because realistically, like if you're talking real life self-defense scenarios, where you have to protect yourself against somebody who's attacking you, like 80 to 90% of real fights are gonna end up on the ground at some point. You start standing, throwing punches at each other, whatever the case may be. But somebody's they're gonna overcommit to some haymaker punch or whatever, and they're gonna get off balance, or they're gonna trip or something. It's real life. It's messy. It's not like in like a sporting arena where there are agreed upon rules and stuff. In real life, when all bets are off, like it's gonna get messy and it's gonna end up on the ground. And yeah, I think for anybody who wants to be able to practically defend themselves in that scenario, yeah, you need to learn how to take the advantage when you're on the ground, which is something that I knew that I was lacking. And so I've been, like I said, super excited to learn more about that, how to do that. Nerds Aaron says, I just wanted to kick things as hard as possible to get out my anger. I mean, I can't argue with that. I mean, that's a very legitimate application of Muay Thai. Like I said, it's a good, I mean, Muay Thai is it's a good cardio workout. And yeah, it's just very cathartic. Like, it's just fun. Just fun. Well, like I said, I'm already being as lean as I am. I don't really need cardio. It's not a big concern for me personally. Twisted Pixel says training up so you can join Creator Clash and beat everyone up. No, I is that some like is that where like YouTubers get together and like box and stuff? Is that I maybe heard about that. Honestly, sounds kind of dumb. Not interested. Not interested in that. Anyway, back on topic. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Pantheon. We are going to be playing Pantheon Bingo. We're going to be getting back in the tradition of DevStream Bingo. So, if you will recall, way back, we'll reach way far back in the archives of our mind, and we're like, oh yeah, it's librarypantheon.com. Bring that back up into the forefront here. Go to librarypantheon.com, navigate to the bingo hall on there, and get a link to the latest bingo card. You'll have to do that if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching live, we have a little bit of a shortcut in chat. You can just hit !bingo. If you want to play along with me, so I'll switch over and show you my card right now. This is what mine looks like. Hit that free space. Well, how are we looking here? I do have craft on my card, which that's an important one for this month. I'm pretty confident that they're going to be saying that at some point in the next 49-minute video. If they don't, then we will know undeniably that they have it out for us and that they're just trying to spoil our bingo fun. Hey, Belle, I'm glad you made it to one of the live shows. And you're just in time, too, because I have not started the video yet. We've just been kind of hanging out, chatting. But we're gonna kick off the video soon, so your timing is impeccable. Twisted Pixel said, did you try Diablo 4? No, I did not. I need to make a confession. I've never played any of the Diablo games. I mean, like, I know about them. And I played Diablo in Heroes of the Storm, but that's pretty much that's my closest connection to it. I don't know, it just never really appealed to me for some reason. I had a roommate in college who played it a lot. And I watched him play sometimes, but no, it's just not. It's not really my vibe. It takes a lot for a single player game to really hook me in. I think that's what it is. It more or less applies to just all single player games where I just enjoy playing with other people so much, and particularly people in my family. That's kind of like my core gaming group. That's where I find out about games and get playing games, and those are the games that get me hooked. And Diablo has just never really infiltrated that gaming group in my family. I know my uncle played like Diablo 1 like way back in the day. I remember seeing like the box. This is back when like games came in physical boxes. I remember seeing the box in his house, and thought it looked pretty cool, but just never got to play it. So that's pretty much. I know I'm probably in the minority in that case, that I don't just try whatever game is new. Like I have to know somebody else who is playing it and enjoys it, and before I really like dive in myself. For the most part, that's how it's been. Um and actually the latest example of that is in the free time that I have had lately. I have been jumping back into old school RuneScape, actually, believe it or not. Been doing that quite a bit, which in that game, it's also super simple to just jump back in and out of. I played it quite a bit a while ago, maybe like a year or two ago, then kind of put it aside. And then my cousin looped me right back into it. So I've been playing with him when I can, because it's nostalgic, because I played it when I was younger, and it's just like it does a lot of things right. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I don't like about it, but just as like a quick, like simple little game that you can just hop in and just like get a really satisfying sense of progression. Like old school RuneScape basically is just like progression the game. Like that's what it feels like. And tying things back into Pantheon, like Joppa actually had a really good conversation in one of these streams several months back, where there are a few reasons why people play games, and why people get like sucked into them, that really like the game retains those players, and it doesn't need to be all of them. It doesn't need to be good at all of those things. Like off the top of my head, I don't want to quote him, because I will probably do it wrong, because this was like several months ago, but like really immersive lore and environments was one of them, and one of them was just a sense of progression. And in my opinion, that is what old school RuneScape has going for it, and it does it so well that even the other things, even if it doesn't do the other things well, if it does one of those things so well, it makes up for it. Because like let's be honest, old school RuneScape is not very immersive. It's a third person, super low polygon, low fantasy. I mean, it's fantasy, but it doesn't take itself very seriously. Like, it's not immersive, okay? And I love immersive games. I love immersive MMOs. But I also love a sense of progression. And because it does that so well, that makes it satisfying enough to at least keep my attention. Am I gonna play it for the next am I gonna play it solidly for the next few years? Probably not. It'll probably, I'll probably keep at it for a little bit longer and then probably put it back off on the shelf for a little while longer and then rinse and repeat. But for it to even be on my radar at all, though, for me to even care about it at all, it does that progression so well, where it takes time to achieve things. Like the accomplishments don't come easy. It's for being a relatively like simple game. And I know people a lot of people just crap on RuneScape, like, oh, like the children's game, like blah blah blah. And like in some ways, yeah, sure it is. But it is a pretty rudimentary game, but it's surprisingly difficult when you really get into it. When you really start trying to push into those upper levels, you realize it's really like not that easy. And so like these goals that you end up setting for yourself don't come easily, and it keeps you chasing after that carrot on the stick. And there's the sense of prestige and like whether it be maybe an item that you're trying to pursue has a really iconic appearance, really recognizable, really cool looking appearance. And you're like, I want that item. And then when you start pursuing it, you realize it's not that easy to get. And anybody who you see who has that item, they spend some time and effort on that. And it's fascinating seeing that in a game like old school RuneScape, which is a super old game and, like I said, pretty basic, but that fundamental value that it has of progression, and just leveling up your skills, and that taking so much time and know-how in order to do that, to reach those higher levels. It's cool that and that resonates with me for much the same reasons that Pantheon resonates with me. So it's interesting how you can kind of, when you look at it that way, look at it a little bit differently, you start to see some of those like underlying values that throughout different games that are very different in a lot of ways. Obviously, I'm not comparing Pantheon to old school RuneScape, because obviously there's a long list of ways that they differ. But I think it's interesting that the sense of progression, though, does have some similarities there. And I kind of learned that about myself in some ways, that learning that, okay, like it's that sense of progression that is important to me. That's one of the reasons why I play games like these, is to have that goal to chase after, that's and have it be challenging. I love to be challenged. I gravitate toward wherever I am being challenged. And particularly if maybe there's even like uh a little bit of competition or like prestige involved. Um like in an MMO. If tying back to like single player RPGs or whatever, which I do love Skyrim. Skyrim is an exception. That's a fantastic game. But aside from that, there's not many single player games that really hook me in deep, because call me vain or whatever, but I like to have a little bit of like a healthy competition with my friends or other people, and have that sense of prestige where it's like, look at all these things that I worked hard for and have accomplished, and look at all this cool gear that I have. And having that kind of sense of community and camaraderie or friendship, like maybe it's you know, like just me and my cousin, you know, playing RuneScape together or whatever, and like I would work hard and like, you know, try to get some new item or something, new item upgrade, and I can show him, you know, I can meet him in game and like show him like, look what I got. Like I just got an abyssal whip for the first time in my life. If you ever played RuneScape, you know that that is an iconic item. And I got one, and I, like, you know, I'm showing it to him, and that's just it's a cool feeling, you know. So that's the sort of thing that I need in a game for it to really captivate me. So I know that's an incredibly long rabbit trail explanation of why I don't play Diablo and what I've been playing lately, but there it is. Now you know. This is how you guys do it. You guys get me talking. I think we've been live for like a half an hour, and here I am. Still have not started the video. I said I was going to start the video, and now this time, I mean it. Bell says, I miss your content on YouTube. Hope you come back more. I will. I mean, like I said, I don't know exactly when, but I promise. I will get back into the swing of things more. Like I said, there just genuinely, it hasn't been a whole lot that I have really felt has been worth covering, but I also anticipate that will change. In the meantime, you know, there's a lot of other great, like Pantheon Plus has been going at it and stuff, so which I'm glad for. Glad somebody's staying on top of things. You know, Twisted Pixels, I have also seen people calling Diablo 4 an MMO, and I'm not sure why. Like, I don't know enough about it to really have an opinion on that. My understanding was that it's like the other Diablo games where it was more focused on single player gameplay. I know, I think I remember there's something where you can play multiplayer with other people, but I don't know, it just doesn't seem the same to me. Like, it doesn't. My understanding is that it's not truly a massively multiplayer online world in the way that we would understand like Pantheon to be. So like I said, I could be mistaken, but that's my understanding, and that's what I'm basing it off of, and why it doesn't really appeal to me. Bell says road to 99 wood cutting. Oh my god. I have not hit 99 in any of the skills yet. And I don't know if I ever will, to be honest. I don't know if I have the time for that. It would be cool though, at least just once. Hey, Retro Jim. Glad you can make it. Skyrim's Engine Talkie's top 5 favorite. Absolutely. Skyrim is an absolute masterpiece. Reasonable person says, like being in high school all over again, trying to distract the teacher. That's exactly what it feels like. All right, I've had enough. I'm hitting play. That's it. Crafting and gathering.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our March 2023 Developers Live Stream. My name is Minus, and today I am without my faithful co-host, Ronick. But as we're talking crafting and gathering today, I couldn't think of a better stand-in than the designer of our crafting and gathering systems, David Nefel Beach. So,
is that David a Vanguard David,
I call that a win.
In the background?
What's up, David? How are you?
I'm doing good, but who's this designer you're talking about?
Yeah, you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the other David.
I guess. I guess I count as a designer. So it has been a team effort, though. But I am happy to be here to represent.
Well, it's important that nobody in chat or nobody in our community ever would think to message David and say, it was weird to have another David, but he did really well to the old David. So, again, don't do that. Definitely
we
did.
I think he did say crap.
So rude. Yeah, nobody should do that. That would be terrible.
Don't do that. So, first of all, I'm very happy to have you.
I think he said team 2. I do this every time. Every single time I forget to actually, I'm like, all right, guys, let's play Pantheon and Bingo. And then I hit play and I forget that we're playing Bingo. I'm pretty sure, looks like, the background looks like the Thronefast shipyard. I'm pretty sure that that's Vanguard screenshot. Maybe some inspiration for the Thronefast docs, but I know Nefel is a huge Vanguard fan and is basing Pantheon's crafting and gathering system off of it in some ways, which, I mean, Vanguard did have a very, very good crafting and gathering system. That's kind of one of the underrated things about that game. So I think it's good to draw some inspiration anyway from that. Not copy it, but take the good from it. I want to listen to this again.
Good evening,
Make sure
everybody,
we didn't hit
and
anything.
welcome to our March 2023 Developers Live Stream. My name is Minus, and today I am without my faithful co-host, Ronick. But as we're talking crafting and gathering today, I couldn't think of a better stand-in than the designer of our crafting and gathering systems, David Nefel Beach. So, David for a David. I call that a win. What's up, David? How are you?
I'm doing good, but who's this designer you're talking about?
Yeah, you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the other David.
I guess. I guess I count as a designer, so it has been a team effort though.
Team,
but,
okay.
I'm happy to be
I
here
thought
to represent.
so.
Well, it's important that
we're off to a
nobody in
good
chat
start.
or nobody in our community ever would think to message David and say, it was weird to have another David, but he did really well to the old David. So, again, don't do that. Definitely don't do that. So
that would be so rude. Yeah, nobody should do that. That would be terrible.
Don't do that.
Did you say community? I'm so bad at this.
First of all, I'm very happy to have you here today.
I'm so bad at this game that
nobody
I
really
created.
knows better about this topic than you do. So without delaying any further, because we have some stuff we're going to show, we have some stuff we're going to reveal. Why don't you just lay the stream out without giving too much details? Like, don't get too in depth here. But why don't you lay the stream out, talk about sort of what we're going to see live tonight or for anyone who's watching on demand. So why don't you go for it?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so there's a lot. And fortunately, we recorded some things ahead of time to make it a little bit easier on ourselves because there is quite a bit. But we're going to show... I think we're going to talk primarily about gathering abilities and how those work in gameplay, and show a couple of clips where you're working with those. We're going to talk about cooking, which is being introduced for the first time in our test this weekend. We're going to talk about some changes to the UI and some updates that we've made there. And there might be a bean or two along the way, maybe. We'll see.
Ooh, bean.
All right, so
I don't have that on my card.
Yeah, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. So why don't we start? This is just a quick video. Start slow, start rolling. So this video here, we're going to actually show a little bit about a UI upgrade that's going to assist in crafting and gathering. So I'm going to roll that video, then I'll actually pause it so you can talk. What do you think? Does that work for you?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, here you go, guys. Okay, in this next video, we're just going to show you something really simple and then sort of talk over an image at the end. So quick little note
and
here.
Pre-recorded voiceover.
One of the things that's important to know is that we really haven't shown, outside of our VIP testers, the new interface for gathering. Let's go ahead and open up our inventory. And you'll actually see that we have our standard inventory here. But a new addition on the left-hand side is this little mining pick, which notates actual gear and the utilities that you'll use, the different items that you'll use here for gathering in the system. So what this does is it allows you to not just focus on your combat gear, but also be able to wear gear that enables you to be a better crafter, gatherer, that kind of thing. You'll see in this window that once populated, you'll have your crafting professions on the side, you'll have your gathering professions and details about them. You'll have anything from, helmet, chest, gloves, and so forth through there. But another neat thing, and this is actually a little bit of a bean, very newly implemented. I don't even think our VIP testers have seen it, but we also have this schematics bag. So now you'll have a small bag that you can use to actually hold any of the schematics that you'll use when you're crafting and like armor smithing and things like that. So it gives you a little more room in your inventory to not be crowded up while you're finding some of these cool items. So David, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this window, and I would love to hear you talk a little bit about what this is going to mean for the player. All right, all you, David, what do you got?
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, you guys can see on the screen there, this is what we're calling the professions tab of the UI. And when it's all said and done, this will sort of be your go-to space for managing anything related to crafting and gathering on your character. We started off with giving you a place to equip those different gathering tools or crafting tools that you're going to have, because let's be honest, hunting around in your bag to find the tools so that you can start gathering, not really fun. So our objective here was to give you a place where you can equip that, and you can see that Minus has his mining pick equipped there. And what that means is that when he runs up to a mining node in the world now and starts to interact with it, he'll automatically switch to that mining pick and begin using it. And then as Minus called out, we have slots for crafting and gathering gear, things that you can find and equip that are going to give you bonuses or boosts of some kind. So along the way, maybe you'll find a nice gathering outfit that you like to use when you're out gathering, or maybe even a crafting outfit that you use when you're crafting. And then the schematic bag itself. Again, we don't want people to have to hunt around in their inventory for things. So that's a way that we can give you as a crafter a place to store those patterns and molds and casts and so on, without having to clutter up your main inventory. It is that bag's only going to hold schematics. It's not going to be able to do anything else. So we're not giving out free inventory space necessarily. We're just not penalizing people for being a crafter. And there will be some limits placed on it as well. There's some stuff that's going to go on the screen that you can't see yet. So we're going to have your progression there once we enable progression for crafting and gathering. There will be a place to access the specialization system on the screen and a couple of other things related to crafting and gathering. But if you're interested in this side of Pantheon at all, this screen is going to be the place where you sort of manage everything related to it, or most of the things related to it.
Awesome. So, I mean, anybody who knows me, and you know me, David, I hope, is aware that I love collecting gear, trying out different combinations. So this is actually something that has me really excited about crafting.
There's excited.
Now that I know I can like hunt down gear for it and like specialize and try different combinations and such. So I'm actually really looking forward to this. And, I love that, I don't mind swapping gear personally, like when it comes to like combat and different area stuff, but I really like that you can be out in the world and you come up to something to gather and you're not having to waste time changing things out or clicking a loadout button, but also just so that you're not, you don't swap out and then forget to swap back. I don't know how many times you've played a game and tried to attack the next enemy you fought with a fishing pole. It is not phenomenal. So I love the fact that it's a great bit of user friendliness that I think perhaps it's one of those things. A lot of people talk about quality of life. Like you don't want too much quality of life. This is the right kind of quality of life. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to focus on what makes things fun, and like I said, hunting around in your inventory doesn't really make things fun. Yeah. So it's about how do we give you a balanced way to skip those sort of tedious parts and get to the part that's really interesting and exciting, without opening the door for problems down the line. And so we think we've landed on a pretty good deal here. I was even discussing with Steve Clover the other day the idea that once we have it all in, that maybe you could even toggle to your gathering appearance. Like if you wanted to look like you were a prospector out in the world while you're running around looking for those mining nodes or whatever, like you should be able to do that. You should be able to stay in that gathering gear visually, and have your character show up that way. So we were talking about, eventually having cosmetic options tied to this and things like that. But it's really just about recognizing what's the fun part of doing these activities and how do we bring that to the forefront and make the management of it something that's simple and easy to do.
He's walking dangerously close to a landmine by talking about that. not that I'm opposed to it, but at least in the past, I mean, that was a hot topic in the community. Like, I remember forum threads that would just go on for pages and pages and pages talking about cosmetic gear and things like that, which is essentially what he's talking about. And having your character appear in gear that is not representative of what they're actually wearing. Now, in this case, it's interesting because like you kind of are wearing that gear. Like you're almost you are wearing two sets of gear simultaneously. If you have your crafting gear equipped and your adventuring gear equipped. And so I think that's a little less controversial than like you just have your one set of adventuring gear and then you just have like a cosmetic appearance. You have a cosmetic appearance on top of that makes it look like something that it's not. So people might look at you and think that you are wearing some sort of like adventuring equipment that you're not. I think it's a little less controversial because like you still have to acquire those items and they still have benefits. It's just for crafting rather than adventuring. So I think that's actually kind of a cool idea. But again, it's still kind of opening that can of worms of like, should other people have control how they view you, or should you have control how other people view you? It gets into this whole long conversation. Because there's a lot of different ways to do it, where you could, well, let me start with my personal favorite application. If you do go the route of cosmetic gear, would be EverQuest 2, where you have your, your equipment UI with the gear that you equip that actually, affects your stats that your character is actually using, quote unquote. But then you have your cosmetic tab UI where that is what is showing, but it's still like you still have to acquire those items and they're real items. But when they're in that slot, you're only using the appearance of that item. So, you could maybe get an item that like looks super, super cool, but maybe the stats aren't the greatest. And, because #fashion quest, you want to use the items that give you the best stats, but appear like you're wearing the items that have the coolest appearances. And so that did kind of allow you to get the best of both worlds, where it was like, you still had to earn those appearances. It wasn't, just handed to you. You still had to earn them. But, there are still some people that would take issue with that. There are still some people who are purists who should say there should be no cosmetics. And, what you are wearing, what you have equipped that is affecting your stats is what everybody else should see. Everybody should see you, exactly as you are, because that's the most immersive. And, I want to be able to tell just by looking at you, like how good your gear is for your level and for your class. And like, at least have a good idea of like, oh, this guy's really like under geared. Maybe I don't want to, invite him to my group or whatever, just by looking at him. And I understand it to some degree. And it kind of, it ties into what I was talking about earlier with iconic appearances. It's a really important aspect of an MMO that I think is underappreciated in a lot of the more modern MMOs that have come out recently anyway. that you have these items that are just so freaking cool looking, that are rare and powerful, that they become well known throughout the community. And it helps if the the vast majority of the gear isn't super flashy, over the top, flamboyant, because that allows the really, really cool items to stand out and to be more iconic. If everybody is just walking around town in, like, cloth robes or leather gear, or maybe some plain, steel armor or whatever the case. And then you get this, like, one guy where it's like, looks like his armor is, like, made out of lava or something like that. That is immediately gonna stand out, because there are so few, or maybe just one, set of items in the entire game that looks like that. And so people can tell just by looking at him what that item is. He knows that, you know that's a powerful item. That guy is an absolute badass, and he worked hard for that. And that the reason that is so important is because that fuels the machine of progression and the incentive to keep playing, so that you too can look as cool as him and get that item and get the attention that's associated with it. That's just something that's kind of hardwired into almost everyone's brain. So that's an important part of any sort of community oriented MMO like this, where players are sharing the same space and interacting with each other. So it's worth having a in-depth discussion about cosmetics and appearances and how it should be applied. I think there's a way to do it tastefully and within reason. I'm not saying EverQuest 2's approach was perfect, but I think it was along the right idea. Because I definitely get, wanting your armor to match, and sometimes you get an item that you just can't pass up the stats, but it messes up the vibe that you had going on, and you just got to do it. It feels bad. So I think there are some creative ways that they could integrate some cosmetics within reason. Again, in a game like Pantheon that takes itself seriously and claims to be immersive, I don't think they should overdo it, especially if it comes to, which I don't think it will, but like when you open the Pandora's box of like cash shop cosmetics and stuff like that, that's just it goes downhill real fast after that, because then you don't know if somebody earned their appearance or they just bought it. You know what I mean? And then if you can just buy a really cool appearance with real money, then you completely undermine the incentive to keep playing the game for long periods of time, in order to collect those cool appearances. Like I said, if you can, give people a way to maybe toggle, appearances, apply cosmetics that they still have earned, though, I think that's pretty reasonable. And then there's a whole other kind of side discussion where it's like, should other people have the ability to like see through that, almost kind of like X-ray vision, where it's like, okay, yeah, you've applied some cosmetic gear, but like maybe in my UI settings, in my options, do I have a button where I can like turn that off to just basically ignore cosmetics, and only see exactly what adventuring gear people actually have equipped. I think there's a solid argument for that to be made as well. But then on the other hand, you're always going to have people on the other side of the coin that are like, well, if people are just going to turn it off, then like, what's the point of having cosmetics at all? You know, maybe like, if you're really vain, you'd be like, no, I want every single person. I want to know without a doubt that every single person is seeing me exactly how I want to be seen with my cosmetics, right? Those are two pretty valid arguments. So you can see I'm off on a tangent, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of this whole debate about cosmetics and how to do them right. So I worried a little bit when Nefel just creeped right up to that topic and just kind of like touched it without going into it. That, you know, again, it's just a discussion that they're having, which I think is a fair thing to share. You know, people want to know what's going on behind the scenes, and it's like, well, this is one of the things they're talking about. Doesn't necessarily mean that's actually going to happen. It's hard to remember that, but it's important for us as viewers to remember that just because that they're talking about it doesn't mean that it's gonna go that way. It doesn't mean that they're actually going to implement that, whether you like it or not. You know, that's game designers are just talking about things all the time. That's just kind of part of the job. So interesting that he that he touched on that, because that is a whole big can of worms, and I wonder, I should maybe go try to check the forums or Reddit or anything to see if anybody picked up on that and ran with it.
I also want to.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna ask, do you think you could potentially like, you don't like, you know, you can just theorize here, but like, what's the type of gear that people may get? Like, what might it improve for people as far as like gathering or crafting?
So a lot of it's not going to be locked in until we get progression and specialization in, because those are going to impact like the different stats and skills and things that we have. But in general, a lot of what you do in gathering as well as crafting is going to be dependent on your skill level. So you can imagine that something might give you a boost to your skill, like you might have something with +1 blacksmithing on it. Or maybe even give you a situational boost, like for example, +1 to alloy creation as a blacksmith, or on the gathering side, maybe +1 to undersea fishing. Again, this is all kind of up in the air because we haven't really locked in that progression aspect yet, and things will change as we get there. But essentially the gear is going to be able to help you in different areas, and it will be up to you to decide which bonuses matter the most, so that and that becomes kind of your kit that you use while you're out in the world. I was just gonna give a quick plug for Steve Clover. Without his hard work and effort, none of what you just saw would have been possible. So Steve has been instrumental in getting all this stuff added into the game, and I really wanted to give him props. He's been a huge asset to getting the crafting sphere online and all the progress that we've made over the last few months.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this and maybe get in trouble, David, so I'll say it so you don't have to. The progress that we've been able to make with a lot of the different things we've been able to check off over the last year, the progress we've been able to make on crafting and gathering implementation over the last 2 months has been so extraordinarily significant, and the strides have been very big. And that is, again, because of the hard work of Nefel and Steve, just really like, first of all, David, you did a really good job designing a lot of this, so it becomes easier to input. But the progress is incredible. So just thank you to both of you. And I think all those crafters out there will really appreciate this. And I think our VIP testers are seeing that, because with our monthly VIP testing now, they're literally seeing month to month how much this is evolving. So it's pretty cool. So little props to you and Steve out there.
Thanks. The other person we should mention, just not to leave him out, is Robert Crane.
Yes.
Because for everything Steve does with the UI on the front end and getting things to work in the game client, Rob is on the back end supporting us in the database. And so, he is just as instrumental to this. So that's all the props I'm going to give tonight. But I wanted to definitely call out those two, because they have really made this actually happen.
Let's just hope if Theric shows any clips of this that he doesn't cut out the part about Rob, because we all know what Theric does. Anyway, let's get to our next topic. Are you ready for this one? This one's a big one.
Let's do it.
This is a big one. So this is a good little video here for everybody. We're going to roll a video and then we'll talk about it. But let's talk what it looks like and show what it looks like mining. So here you go, everybody. Okay, and now we're going to take a look at gathering abilities. Now, these are abilities that will be able to be used when doing various gathering out in the world. For today's little demo, we're going to show you mining, and so that's what we've been working on. Now, if you open up your spell book, you'll see that you are automatically listed with your combat abilities, and you'll see them on the interface below. If I click the little mining symbol there, you'll actually see that I have abilities that come up for mining. And we're going to walk through these in just a moment, but you'll also notice in the bottom that my ability bar has changed over to a gathering style bar. So that'll allow me to have these abilities equipped while I'm out in the wild, so that I don't need to change them just to mine, which is a really good quality of life for the player. So let's look through these abilities. We are mining today in an area that we set up. It is live on ThroneFast, hidden away in a little area, so we could set up something that will respawn. So a little testing area out in the world. But the first ability here is Precision Strike. So this delivers a single strike to the mining target that does 300% damage. So a big strike with a minute cooldown. We then have Solid Grip. Solid Grip is a technique that doubles mining critical hit chance for 30 seconds, but it will also drain your endurance. We have two abilities that can be toggled on or off. These are Powerful Strikes, which adds a 25% bonus damage while active, but it does cause 2 damage of feedback to
Watch
the player
out, Rivaldis.
for each attack. So yes, even though Ronick is not here today, David, you can die from mining. I'm sure we'll hear that story soon. Jokes aside, the next one here is Chipping, another toggled ability. This adds 10% critical chance while active, but it does reduce the amount you're attacking in speed.
I just spewed crumbs all over my desk. And actually, that was a dead Ronick joke, which I don't have on my card. Dang it. Oh, man. If anybody's playing along, you could have dead Ronick joke on your card, and that would have been a home run. That was pretty funny, dying from mining.
By 25%. So these again are toggled abilities you can put on to change how you're mining. And finally, one more attack style damage ability called Strike the Earth. This will use all the endurance that you have to deal 10 times damage in a single strike at the cost of 25% of your maximum health. So once again, a little risk and reward there, so be careful if there's enemies nearby or you're low health. Okay, so let's get into using some of these abilities now. So let's go ahead and we'll start attacking this ore. And you'll see that right away it starts up. Now keep in mind, animations and some of these abilities are still very early, and there's a couple things we'll need to work out, which I'll talk about as we go through them. But all that stuff is coming. You'll see my mining skill increasing in our small little area here for our new ability updates that doesn't clog up your chat log, which is nice. So first, let's go ahead. We'll just do our basic Precision Strike and do an increased damage. So you see we're hitting anywhere from 8 to 4 on average. Let's see what we do with that. Oh, so we had a pretty low run there. So unfortunately, it looks like a 3 or 4 damage that we only hit for 6. So, oh well. The next one is, let's go ahead and let's turn on our powerful strike. So this is going to deal some damage to me, and you'll see that in the top left-hand corner, so watch. So we have that on. That is going to, you'll see it ticking away at my health up there. At the same time, you're going to see the pop-up says that it's immune. That's just a slight reporting error that we're correcting. So again, it's dealing some damage to me, but now I'm hitting a little bit more. You also see, again, it says we're taking 0 damage in the log, but we are. You can see it up there. So we're doing a little more damage, so now's a great time for us to go ahead and use Strike the Earth. This is a giant damage attack that's going to do some good stuff. So let's go ahead and throw that on. And you can see we did 30 damage with Strike the Earth, so a massive increase in damage, and that also took away our endurance. So the first thing you're going to see is we're exhausted. This is basically what happens when you're sprinting. This is not going to allow us to sprint or climb until we regenerate our endurance. So that'll go away. Now, the other thing is there are some abilities, whether you're toggling on or off an ability, or whether you are using an ability, that'll cause you to be winded. So winded shows that you have overexerted yourself and you need to rest. So it temporarily reduces strength and movement speed for 1 minute. So when we use Strike the Earth, that occurred. We also see that happen when we untoggle abilities like Powerful Strikes. So there's a little bit of planning that needs done. Now, other than that, we're going to go ahead and try our Solid Grip now. So for 30 seconds, we have increased critical damage. So let's hope we see some criticals down here in the right or see a critical light up. Right now, we're still hitting for basic. Got to get that crit up. Mining skill continues to increase, and you can see we're really working down this crystal. Now keep in mind that this takes some time to get down a large crystal like this. So think in the future here in this actual stream, we're going to actually show why it's important to have some friends around. But little spoiler there. We got about 2-3 seconds left on our criticals. We have not done well in our critical test there, but it does work. I have done this a few times. That was my worst critical. Got to get that crit up on my rogue. And then finally, let's go ahead and we'll activate this ability, which is called Chipping. So this is going to give us more crit chance, but reduces our attack speed by 25%. So let's hope if we put this on, maybe we'll see some crits. So you can see that ability comes up in the right-hand corner, Chipping. And we'll see if we get any. Oh, there we go. We got a 6 crit there. It depends how hard we're hitting when we crit, but we got a 6 crit there. And you can see my mining skill is continuing to go up. We're almost done getting this crystal down. And then we'll get some loot. So while we're still doing that, I have my abilities have come back up. Let's go ahead and use Precision Strike, see if we can get a bigger hit here. 12. That was a good hit with that. That was a real good hit. And we almost have it down, so let's go ahead and final it down here. Alright, and get that loot. So we get the chunk of ore. So I hope you guys like the abilities. I hope you like that it's a little different than standard gathering. So now let's hear from David and really talk about abilities and gathering and what that's going to mean.
Before he gets into that, I feel obligated to point out. I'm gonna let me just say this. I'm gonna express where I'm at currently on this system, and then we're gonna listen to see what he has to say to see if that affects my point of view at all. Because after watching that video, again, keeping in mind that the system is not complete, etc., etc., but just based on what they've said so far, this does not seem interesting. It seems unnecessarily complicated for no benefit, essentially no benefit. Now that may seem harsh, and I will say that I think it's a good idea in theory to add a little something to harvesting so that it's not just boop, click on a node and then something instantly just gets added to my inventory, or boop, wait a predetermined 3 seconds and then something gets added to my inventory. So I agree with the devs in the sense that that traditional system does leave something to be desired, and I think there is room to explore more to that. But with what they've shown so far, this just adds more button mashing for kind of no reason. Like it takes a really long time to just do one node, which again is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be it could be interesting if you're, let's think about it in the context of like if you're in a really dangerous part of the world and you know that harvesting a node is going to take some time and there's really dangerous creatures wandering around. That could create some suspense. You need to have people maybe watch your back while you're harvesting a node. Maybe that's what he was kind of hinting at that they're going to get into later. That's cool. But just giving a node like a butt ton of hit points and then giving you different abilities that just remove those hit points at different rates isn't interesting. Because players are still gonna do the math and they're gonna crunch the numbers to find out the most efficient way that you can DPS this node to get it down to 0 as soon as possible. And I see no decisions that need to be made in how you use these abilities. You're just gonna, again, you're gonna develop a rotation where you have the most efficient abilities on your hotbar and you hit them as soon as they're off cooldown. And again, from what we've seen so far, that seems to be the extent of it. And if that's all that is, then that's just creating complexity without benefit. So, again, it's missing a critical component of interactivity. Like having these little mini games can be really, really good, but if done well. And again, I think from what we've seen so far, this misses the mark because it's missing interactivity. So again, actually going back to EverQuest 2. I know I'm sure other MMOs did something similar like this, but EverQuest 2 is just the first one that comes to mind for me. With crafting specifically, I remember the crafting was a little bit of a mini game because you had to pay attention to it, and the interface was interacting with you. In that you're maybe like doing some, if you're doing some blacksmithing, for example, like you need to actually maintain the metal at a proper temperature, and and so you're doing things to keep it in the proper temperature, and then if as you're hammering away at it, you might discover like something might come up that there's like a defect in the metal, and you need to respond to that in a certain amount of time, with a technique that corrects that defect or something. You need to do that within 3 seconds. And if you do, then you successfully, correct that defect, and that improves the quality of the weapon. Things like that. That's great. But because it's interactive, and it makes you, it does make you feel like you're doing something, you have more control over it. And I think that is objectively better than a like click and combine system where we see in some games, like EverQuest 1, where it's just like, okay, you just put the ingredients together, hit combine, and boop, the item is created. I think it is, mini games can make things more fun and interesting and rewarding. But it has to actually be a game. Just giving a node a number of hit points and then giving you just different buttons to just reduce those hit points, it's not actually a game. That would get old extremely fast. So that's where I'm at with this right now. I'm curious where you guys are at this. Yeah, Ripflex says, I see this as boring. I prefer minigame and crafting with a chance to fail or crit craft a better item. Like in EQ2. Boom. We're on the same page. I agree. Like I think crafting is better suited for this sort of thing than gathering. Well, not 100%. Like fishing, you could have a cool fishing minigame. Because thematically you can like fish like are interactive. you know, you can give fish these different behaviors that you have to react to. But like mining, like it's a rock. Like it's not going to react to you or behave dynamically in any way. Like it is just there. Okay. I can't think of any way that would make thematic sense that would make that more interesting. Like you might as well just like click and then wait some time, chip away, watch your character chip away at it, and then maybe you get something. But making you push different buttons, it's like you're just going through the motions. Thorn Deep says, agree with you, Baz. I like the general direction harvesting is going, but it does need more strategy. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think that's where it's at right now. Cause like a game, a mini game, any sorts of game, just like going back to the basics of game theory, any sort of game has to be a two-way street. Again, obviously there are single player games, but it's like, you're interacting with some sort of force on the other side, some sort of pushback. Like a computer programmed NPC or something like that. Or a system, that you have to, or like a puzzle that you have to solve or something like that. But just giving a node an amount of hit points is not a system that you can interact with in interesting ways. So let's put that aside though and hear what he has to say.
All right, so you.
Yeah, so this might be the first look for some of you at the gathering abilities. Our pre-alpha testers got to see these last month, but due to some bugs, they weren't really able to use them very effectively. So we're looking forward to our upcoming PA test this weekend to really get some good feedback in on how they feel and how they impact gameplay. But the general idea behind gathering abilities, when you talk to people about gathering in different games, they'll either tell you that it's boring or they'll tell you that it's relaxing. And relaxing is a good thing. So we didn't want to go too far away from that vibe, but we wanted to do something to help spice it up a little bit, to help give you something else to do while you're sitting there waiting for that node to die, especially since the nodes that you gather from in our game are going to take a little longer than you might be used to. And that's on purpose. We'll get to that in a little bit as to why we're doing that. So we came up with the idea of gathering abilities, and the ones that you saw minus walk through there are sort of they're our first set of prototypes. That's really just those abilities are there to see how they play out in real action, and honestly how well they work or how well they don't work. And then based on the feedback that we get, we'll continue to tweak and refine them. Our goal is ultimately to be able to give every gathering profession a set of probably 10 to 12 abilities that are fun and interesting and distinct and unique to use. We don't necessarily want you to have to juggle your hotbar a lot, but we want to give you some options there so that when you go into different situations, like for example, if you're mining in an extreme climate, you might use a different set of abilities than if you're just mining in somewhere safe. So we really want to give players those options, to give you a little bit of control, to give you some tools that you have at your disposal, so that you can change up that gathering interaction, whether it's maybe gathering a little faster so that you can get away from the bear that's coming after you, or maybe it's actually kind of slowing down and doing things a little differently to avoid some damage or an environmental effect, or avoid that patrol of orcs that's walking nearby. You don't want them to notice that you're gathering. So we have a lot of flexibility in the system, and really looking forward to expanding on it as we go, and giving you lots of different ways to kind of I'm trying to think of the word, but kind of
like engage, like different ways to
yeah,
engage.
it can engage with the world, right? Because it is about the world. It's not just about the gameplay activity, but it's about the world around you. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully everybody's excited.
There's some promise there if it's made clear in the abilities, like you could implement some sort of mechanics that do interact with the world, the environment around you. Like, he didn't say it specifically, but maybe a cool way to take it would be like, if you're mining, okay, you have these, you have kind of your standard technique that just kind of slowly chips away at the rock, and it's kind of like a slower way to gather materials. But maybe you have an alternate way of harvesting where it's faster, but it creates more noise. And because of the way NPC aggro is set up, if certain NPCs aggro is triggered by noise within a certain radius, and maybe you creating more noise by mining would be more likely to alert those NPCs in the area. That's sort of an interesting consideration that you would have to make when you're actually doing this in game. So again, I mean, there's some promise there, but I worry if the main driving force behind this is like, well, a lot of people say gathering is boring, so we want to spice it up. Like, that's not necessarily a good reason to add complexity. Like, complexity just for the sake of not being simple is not always a good thing, because then you end up going too far in the other direction where it's too complex, there's just too much button mashing, and sometimes less is more. Sometimes simple is elegant. And it's okay. And honestly, even if it is sometimes boring to some people, like, it's okay. It's okay. People probably aren't gonna quit just because gathering can get repetitive, or boring or whatever. It's okay. It's okay. So anyway, I digress. Let's keep listening.
But really looking forward to the upcoming test to get some more feedback on these.
Yeah, Plus Dark, first time chat, very insightful. Says, I actually enjoy the mindless gathering grind. And Nefel even said that at the beginning. Some people, they find it relaxing, which is great. And it's relaxing because it's simple, and it's almost meditative. You click and you watch the bar fill up, and boop, and you get your thing. Like, that's a pretty satisfying interaction because it's so simple. And if a lot of people find that relaxing, like, why mess with that? Like, I mean, you're never gonna please everyone anyway. And so sometimes just kind of trying to nudge it in the other direction, you end up pleasing no one. Because, well, it's not relaxing anymore because I need to press all these buttons, but it's also still kind of boring because you have this huge hit point pool on this node that takes a long time to get down to 0, and you're not really making any decisions, you're just pressing buttons. And it's I would argue that's still pretty boring. Even though you're doing more, it's not engaging because you're not having to react really too much. So then you kind of end up with a system that nobody likes. That's That's dangerous. If a lot of people find it relaxing, then like, I don't know, maybe it's best not to mess with it. But again, I am open to learning more. So let's keep going.
And then, based on that feedback, this is a little bit of a bean, but we'll be bringing wood cutting and harvesting online in the very near future, and harvesting being plants that you find on the ground. And both of those will have sets of abilities. They'll have different abilities from what mining does as well. So you can think of these mining abilities as sort of it's the start, and we're going to keep going from here.
That's awesome. And I think, too, it's important. People are saying, is it going to take that long all the time? No, that's a rather large node in a test area with just a one loot on it, just so you can loot it. It's going to respawn right. That's what we wanted to make sure we said at the beginning. It's a test area. The reward for larger ones will be bigger than smaller ones. Small and lesser skilled ones will go down quicker, but there's going to be ones that you want to spend some time on because it's going to be worthwhile or it's going to be rare. I don't want to get into that too much, David, because you know a lot more about that than me, but I think I'm on point there, right? I'm pretty close.
Yeah. So for those who've heard me talk about it before, that node that you were using in the test scene it's a huge node, and it's actually sized so that you would want multiple players to help with it. So it's so I purposely put that huge node there because I knew we were going to be recording a video of the abilities, and I wanted to give you time to actually talk through those abilities. But yeah, there are nodes that big in the world. Actually, that there are nodes that will be even bigger in terms of their hit points. And those things they're not meant to be like a speed bump for the solo miner, but what they're there to do is to help encourage you to work with other players.
Did you say work with other players, David? Slow down, because I think we have a nice demonstration to show the next thing we're excited about. And this will kind of...
Repflex says there's a middle ground on this. Maybe have plain nodes you gather normally and get basic resource, and have boss nodes where you get more and a chance to gather rare and unique crafting materials. I think that might be an interesting compromise. Actually, going back, since feels weird to bring up old school RuneScape again, but I just learned not that long ago that they have something similar, where obviously we all know mining is a pretty big part of that game. It's very simple. You just boom, click on the node, wait a few seconds, depending on the quality of, depending on the type of the node and the quality of the tool that you're using, it's a different amount of time until you get that ingredient in your inventory. Pretty simple, but again, it's pretty meditative. Like, it's super simple, but like, it's satisfying. Like, you can really get into a groove where it's like a pretty like just peaceful way to pass the time. Anyway, but then there are also, I saw recently there are these like fallen star nodes, which are almost kind of like these meteorites or meteors that like come and hit the ground and are huge and have like tons of hit points, and multiple people can mine them simultaneously, and you're basically mining this meteor and it's kind of like a random event that has these more rare resources that you can get from it. You can get like stardust and like meteorite chunks or whatever, those like rare materials that it's pretty cool when you see one of those and you see like multiple people mining away at that thing simultaneously. Like, that's pretty interesting to me. So yeah, you might be able to get like the best of both worlds, but I fear if you have to do this like button mashing every time just to get even like basic materials. I don't know. I feel like it would get old pretty quickly, and then you're still bored, but just forced to do more work, which is almost worse. Yeah, I know he said there's different node sizes, and that one was a huge one, but still, I'm just going back to just like the philosophy of the whole like mining abilities. might be taking it too far. At least in the way that it is applied here. Again, I'm not discounting mini games altogether. Like, I could even imagine this would probably be too difficult to actually implement well, but something that came to mind that would be more that I think would be more enjoyable is like some like zoomed, like when you go to mine a node, you get this like zoomed in first person view of the rock, in this case for like mining, and like let's say you have to actually manually click on your screen, and wherever you click, that is where your pick goes. Or maybe, as your mining skill increases, your pick is more accurate. You might click on some place, but if your mining skill is lower, maybe your pick won't actually go exactly where you click. But the idea is that you're trying to pick away the like regular rock to uncover the gems or the materials or whatever underneath, and try, pick around them to isolate them, so that once you've cleared the area around it, then it gets added to your inventory. You kind of like, am I painting a picture? I think something like that might be more interesting, and a better way, and more even immersive way to go about it. It kind of reminds me of Skyrim, actually. One of the things that I love, whenever I have the opportunity, I bring up Skyrim's lock-picking interface, where when you go to pick a lock, it zooms right in on the lock, and you can see the holes, and you can see it rotate, and you have these two tools, and it's very simple, but it's elegant, and you can move the two tools clockwise or counterclockwise, and you're just feeling, in sometimes they'll spin freely until they reach a certain point. You can start to feel that resistance, and if you push it too far after it starts to stop, then your tool might break. But anyway, like, it doesn't take very long at all, but it's a very, very simple little mini game where you need to move these two tools clockwise or counterclockwise just to the right spot, just up to that point where you start to feel resistance, but not too far. You just need to line them up and get them in the right spot, and then once you have, then the door unlocks. It's like, again, it's just a nice, quick, little, simple, easy to understand mini game that takes maybe just a little bit of dexterity, but like anybody can do it. And in my opinion, it never gets old. I think it's brilliant. That's one of the things that makes Skyrim such a good game. So I think, there is there's opportunities to apply some of those same principles to other skills. And by the way, like, so in Skyrim, with lockpicking, if I remember correctly, there are different difficulties of locks, and there's you can level up your lock picking skill as well. Like, obviously, if you successfully pick a lock, like your skill in lock picking might go up, and and you can get different lock picking tools and stuff. And in general, that those three factors between the difficulty of the lock, the quality of your tools, and your skill, that determines, maybe among other things, but mainly like how much resistance you can tolerate without breaking your tools. So, maybe if it's like a really, really tough lock, and or you have bad tools, and or you have low skill, it might be like you have to be real, like might have to go real slow and turn it real delicately, because like if you go too far, boom, your tools will just snap. Whereas if you have better tools or more skill, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room. You maybe not have to be quite so ginger in order to unlock it, or without your tools breaking. So there's still those other dials that as the designer you can still fiddle with, so that it's not always the same interaction every time. I think little like first person minigames, in my opinion, are a much more interesting way of going about things like that. Now, again, I also understand at the same time, realistically speaking, from the development perspective, that those also take a fair amount of time and resources to implement. It's not something that you can just bang out well in a day, but I think that sort of approach is more preferable to just button mashing for the sake of button mashing. But again, let's continue to listen and see if they have more to add.
I show everybody where you're heading, and then you can talk a little bit more about it. And this is a fun one, so let's show this one.
Oh yeah, go ahead, let's show it.
Sweet crystals. Oh man. Hey Sav, are you still nearby?
Yeah, I am. What's up? What do you need?
Hey, I found a node. It's pretty huge. This actually should be pretty sweet. Can you come help me mine it? Because there are bears spawning around me.
Oh my god, that's a huge bear. Or is
Absolutely.
Minus just
Send you an
tiny?
invite. Give me a second.
Is this like Honey I Shrunk the Kids? Because the scale and perspective is like messing with me. Like, look at how huge this bear. I think Minus might just be tiny. Like, he's like a brownie. Because like this node is 3 or 4 times the size of him. And look how his bear is also like 3 or 4 times the size of him. There's nothing else to really give me a sense of scale around here. Like, this looks bizarre.
Hey Sav, are you still nearby? It's pretty huge. This actually should be pretty sweet. Can you come help me mine it? Because there are bears spawning around me.
Why do they have to make the bear
Absolutely.
so big?
Send you an invite. Give me a second.
All right, on my way.
Awesome.
Oh, you're right here.
Yeah, we got to be quick. I'm going to throw my abilities on here and just start, like, burn it. I'm going to throw the damage thing. I take damage doing this, but I'm going to throw the toggle on here in a little bit to take more damage once this is all off my buffs. Check where these bears are. Oh, boy. They're multiplying. There's like 4.
Oh, wow.
What the heck? What is this, like a firing squad of
I feel like David has something to
Goliath
do with this.
bears?
He's coming after you. I haven't actually done a lot of mining, but I love these abilities.
Yeah, I just put powerful strikes on, so I'm actually going to be taking some damage. But let me... Oh my god, there's like a ton of them, and they're huge. All right, go.
Oh,
I'm losing health. I like the ability to lose health here, but I'm definitely taking damage, so we gotta figure
well,
out
yeah, but it hits hard.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I've also got Strike the Earth on that.
Ooh, hit that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Awesome.
there we
I'm
go.
gonna check these bears real quick. Give me a second. Wait, did you
Ooh,
just take the ore?
nice.
Sav?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
well listen,
No.
can you at least help me
Nope.
fight these bears? Sav?
Nope, definitely not. Nope, I'm out. Sav the Savage strikes again.
All right, let's go. Here we go.
Big Brown.
All right, so little demo there. We had some fun with that one.
Wow, Sav got you. She
Listen.
totally got you.
No one is immune. No one is immune to the savagery. So David, this introduced what you were about to talk into, which is group play in the gathering sphere. So I would love for you to take maybe a few minutes and talk about what this means and what you're looking for this to evolve into. Remember, everybody, we're getting there. So some of this is theoretical or will be implemented. But David, I'll let you just go. Why don't you kind of talk about why this is so important to you and what it means for the players?
Yeah, so where to start? So one of the things that when I joined the team with Pantheon, even before as a member of the community, I feel pretty strongly about is that gathering should not be treated as a side game. Gathering or crafting, none of that should be treated as a side game. And if you look at many other MMOs out there, whether intentionally or not, gathering and crafting is viewed as a side activity that you do on your own time when you're not playing the game with other people. And while that can be fun for a while, eventually it can lead to a place where you feel like you're putting in a lot of effort for something that other players don't really appreciate. So one of the things that I really believe in very strongly is that everything we do needs to provide social value, meaning that if you decide to master a crafting profession or become a keeper, or even if you just happen to get really good at doing a certain aspect of your adventuring class, like there should be value in that activity, not just for you, but for other players as well. So when we worked out the initial design for Pantheon, we came up with the idea that gathering should be something that you can do while you're adventuring. It shouldn't be a separate activity. And many of the gathering nodes that you're going to want to gather from, so many of those more rare and exotic materials, are going to come from dangerous places out in the world. They're going to be in dungeons. They're going to be, even if it's not a dungeon, it's, they're going to be places that are guarded by powerful monsters, right? You're going to need help just to get into those areas to do the gathering in the first place. And then, obviously, if you're going to have other people there with you anyway, why not let them in on the process? Some of the most fun that I ever had just gathering in an MMO was running around in Vanguard, felling trees to build ships with, and having my guild help me cut down trees just so we could get enough lumber to build the ships. So why not kind of emulate that and provide a similar sort of experience where people can just help each other in Pantheon here? So that's really where we're coming from with the group gathering. We want it to be a collaborative experience. We want it to be something that people can help you with, that you can help other people with, and you can have fun doing. And as you saw with the abilities there, that really adds another layer to it as well, where you sort of have that tactical layer about how are you going to take down this really massive node that you found. So yeah, I mean, hopefully everybody's excited about it. Hopefully it's something that sounds fun. Probably our number one rule is that we.
What is the tactics though? Like, I feel like I'm missing something the way that he's describing, and like even what they demonstrated. I know it was intended to be kind of like a basic demonstration, but they weren't really cooperating and communicating in like a tactical sense. Like they were both just trying to reduce the node to 0 hit points as soon as possible and pushing whatever buttons they had available to them that did more damage to just get it down as fast as possible. Like yes, it's cooperative in that sense that you're doing it with someone else. And I agree with him in that there's value in doing that, particularly in a game that like Pantheon that values community so highly. Being able to call somebody in to help you get a node down faster, that in and of itself is cool. But you can do that without all the different button mashing. Yeah, Thorndeep says the only one I saw was taking damage to speed up the harvesting, but not much other than that. Yeah, so I mean that is a little bit of it is granted somewhat of a choice that you need to make, where it's like, is it worth it to me to expend some health to get this down faster? Like, can I afford to do that? I don't know if it's a particularly interesting decision, but it is a decision that you need to take into account. But again, like, that's something that both of them had available to them, and it was a decision that they could both make independently, and it wasn't like they weren't strategizing together about like, oh, like if you do this and I do this, then with our powers combined, we'll have this different outcome. It didn't seem like it was really working that way. It's just like it was going down at a certain speed with one person, and then, just adding more people on just by the fact that you're doing more damage individually than combined, that makes it go down faster. You know what I mean? Where it's not like, let me give a better example. Within Pantheon's combat system, where you have complementary abilities, or opportunistic conditions is the word that I'm trying to think of, where it's like one class has one ability that opens up another opportunity for another class. Classic example is like a shaman casting headwinds on a creature to put them in a windswept state, and a wizard in your group identifies that that NPC is in a windswept state, and then starts casting fire spells on them, knowing that his fire spells will have a different effect because his teammate applied that windswept state. And like, you get that interactivity where you get different outcomes because you coordinated that and timed it correctly. But that's when you're dealing in combat with an NPC. Could that be applied to something like mining or other types of gathering? Maybe. If so, that would certainly be more interesting than just like, I'm doing this much damage, you're doing that much damage, and so then combined, it just goes down faster. You kind of see what I'm getting at? I don't want to belabor the point too much, but what if the ore is in a fracture and you need help while you mine? Yeah, I'm not discounting the possibility that climates and fractures and other environments around nodes might make it a little bit more interesting. And would maybe break up like this rotation of abilities that you're so used to using for nodes, and it's like, well, maybe there is a certain harvesting ability that you don't want to use if you're in a particular climate or whatever the case may be. It is possible. But is that worth like this whole system? I don't know. Remains to be seen. You could add states to the node that abilities could take advantage of. Yeah, like, I'm trying to think of a way that you could do that thematically that would be interesting. And again, it's like, it's tough in particular that they're using mining as the example, because like, mining is just inherently boring. Like, it has to be boring because you're dealing with a rock. Like, the rock, it's hard to really make a rock dynamic and interesting. It's like, I don't even know. Like, you have like somebody who uses an ability that like just makes the rock more brittle or something for a period of time, and that somebody else can use a precise strike within that time window that then does more damage, or something like that. That could be cool if you can get it to make sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. I don't know. Gulu says, could also have an NPC disposition that is very protective of certain harvesting nodes. Yeah, that could be cool. It could be cool. But again, like, yes, you can have cool interactions like that. But again, like, I can't shake the thought of, though, like does that make it worth it? Like, is that really necessary? Like, I always go back to the, like, my instinct, which was drilled into me, which is particularly important in board games, but when designing board games, but I think it also applies in video games as well, where it's like, try not to add complexity, or try to not add a system to a game just because it sounds cool. Like, or just because it seems like it would be fun. Like, you should really add systems and complexity when the game needs it. Like, when you're playtesting and you're just like, there's something really, really missing here. That's when you want to add some extra mechanics or complexity. Like, just adding it for the sake of, like, oh, well, like, this could be a cool interaction that happens sometimes, or like, you know, this could be cool. It's dangerous. That's dangerous territory to tread in, because, again, like I was saying earlier, you end up adding things that you don't really need, and it just adds unnecessary complexity, and that it's very easy, speaking from experience, it's very easy to get carried away from that and to just add complexity. And, you know, it might, from the designer's perspective, might seem awesome, but as a new player coming in who doesn't have that context and doesn't understand anything else, they might come in and it might seem like intimidating to them. Like, they have this whole other hotbar of abilities that they need to figure out what each one of them does, and then once they do, then they realize, it's like, do I really need to be doing this? Like, is this really necessary? It can be dangerous. But we are still have about like 20 minutes left in the discussion, so we'll carry on.
We want it to be fun, so we will keep working on things and iterating on them until we get them to that place where people can play it and say, you know what, this is just fun to do. And we want it to be fun, not just by yourself, but with others as well.
Awesome. You know, as we continue to talk about Pantheon, whether it's on Parting the Veil or it's here, it's important to know that one of the biggest things we focus on is the social sides of the game. The push to group and build bonds. And I like that you can gather solo. Don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of people really like to do that solo. Like you said, it's that comfort and just relaxing. Like, today, I'm not going to push so hard. I just kind of want to gather. And you can do that. But just knowing that there's the other side of it. Sometimes that wasn't always there. And I'll tell you that, and Neff, this is totally a true story. There are so many times in MMORPGs where I say to myself, I wake up in the morning, I grab some coffee, I'm off work, and I say, today, I'm going to get my mining up. That's all I'm going to do. And I get ready and I sit at the desk and I'm just going to do this for like 3 or 4 hours. And after about 10 minutes, I'm like, is anybody looking for a dungeon? Like, I like literally just can't keep doing it. So it's fun that we're getting away from just run and click, follow patterns, follow paths. We're making it that, these are going to be a little more rare to find. It's going to be more exciting to actually have that discovery and then to have these different elements to it. So I really, I enjoy that a lot. I just want to give a quick shout to you at this time of the stream. If you are just discovering Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, check out pantheonmmo.com. There's a /pledge. You can see some of the pledge options. If you don't know, we're crowdfunded. So our pledge options are pledges to help go right to the development of the game. And then there's some perks. So, if there's certain pledges that are where you want to be or what you'd like to donate to the game. And then you can check and see what you might get out of that. And Neff, obviously we have a pre-alpha testing session coming up this weekend. And we are committed to at least once a month for the rest of the year. So this is going to be our best year of pre-alpha testing for sure. And I would hope
he said
that
alpha,
our pre-alpha testers would say that we're
pre-alpha.
starting to see some pretty rapid implementation of things like, for example, what we're seeing in crafting. So again, everybody, if you want to support the project, check it out. That's all we ask.
I thought of something else that I think is important to bring up here too. That might be a easier way to fix the system that they have currently. And that is dealing with the issue of abilities not having a tangible impact. Like, using an ability in combat, or in this case in gathering, should feel good. Like, viscerally feel satisfying. And I think one of the issues that they have right now is that, again, in the limited demonstrations that they've given, just watching it, like, using the abilities seem to have almost no effect. Like, negligible impact on the speed of mining. And that makes it very unsatisfying. So even just dialing up the numbers could create more interesting decisions. Basic example, like the one where you have to like expend your own health to do more damage to the node. Like, really make that substantial, where it's like where the health that you have to spend is actually like dangerous, but it really makes the node go down like noticeably faster, like significantly faster. Like, you're really just hauling away at this mine. You're like pouring yourself into this mine, and yes, you can get through it really quick, but like, you are hurting after. Where it's like, as it was now, where it's like, okay, he's taking a little bit of damage, and it may be going a little bit faster. You see what I mean? Where it's like, what's the point? Like, why does that matter? It's not an interesting decision if there's not real consequence. That might be something to think about before they go too crazy trying to overhaul things. Which, like, I know, again, he said that, this is not done, which is why I'm trying not to rag on the system too hard, because it's still pretty new, and any system is going to need those tweaks, particularly when it comes to numbers. So maybe that would be a good place to start. Do you guys agree with that? Because as it stands now, it's like just watching it, like the abilities, I can barely tell that they're doing anything. Zarko says, hopefully that might be more noticeable with good crafting gear and higher skill, etc. Yeah, maybe, but I would argue that it needs to be fun at level 1. It's a good little rhyme. It's a good little rhyme for you. Because if it's not, then like, where's the drive for people to want to continue pursuing that, to level it up and get that other cool gear and stuff? Like, even if in its most basic form, it should be satisfying to do and really like punchy and fun to really get you into it. And by even just dialing up the numbers at level 1, where you really maybe have to expend like some serious amounts of health to do more damage to the node. Again, just as a very basic example here for the sake of conversation. That also leaves room open for your sense of progression as you level up, and maybe get better gear. Like, you can do things that maybe decrease the amount of health that you lose when using that ability. So that makes you more efficient, and it gives you that satisfying sense of progression where it's like, wow, like when I started out, like I really had to spend a lot of health to do this massive amount of damage to the rock, but now that I've leveled up, I can still do lots of damage to the rock, but don't have to spend as much health. But by starting with a wider range like that gives you more room to make those adjustments for progression and still have it be noticeable. You know what I mean? Yeah, Thorndeep says your decisions need to feel like they matter. 100% across the board. In any form of game. And right now, it just feels like they don't. That's my impression, is that these abilities, as they are right now, just simply don't matter. And so, again, it could be as simple as just cranking up the numbers until they really matter. It's undeniable that they matter. That might fix it, make it feel better, or it might not. We'll see.
So moving on. You teased it earlier. We have a new profession that's going to be in this weekend. So that's a good time to talk about that, right?
Yes. Gula Gula just made a perfect point. If anyone can click it and AFK or use abilities and maybe finish it 20% faster, a lot of people will just click it. That is absolutely true. People will follow the path of least resistance, often even if it's not efficient. And somebody brought up earlier the point about like botting too. Which I think is a valid point of maybe trying to add a little bit of like a mini game to crafting so that people can't just bot it, which I think is fair. But again, like Gula Gula just pointed out, like if there is the option to just click and just wait, like the bots they'll be satisfied with it taking just a little bit longer. But also, something that Pantheon has been doing for a long time now, which I think goes a long way toward preventing or mitigating the whole botting issue, is that nodes don't always appear in the same spot. They're not predictable in their locations and their spawn times, which I think is great. I think that's a great decision that they made a long time ago. That goes a long way toward reducing the like just rote repetition, like brain dead, just like, here I go, time to go do my loop again. Something that you can easily program a bot to do. Just like, I go to this location, click on that, wait a little bit of time, go to this other location. Like even just having the nodes spawn less predictably is great. That alone, I think, makes it more dynamic, and you can accomplish that while still having your interaction with the node still be pretty simple and elegant. So again, sometimes you can have too much of a good thing, too much, too much complexity is not necessarily for the best. And yeah, like Visual Destroyer just said, bots will not be stopped by a minigame. Look at fishing in New World. Yeah, good point. Good point. Virtually any type of game, there'll be somebody out there who can solve it and program it. Might not be as easy, but like it will be doable. It can't be stopped entirely.
So why don't we show a little demo of what our VIP testers can experience this weekend?
Let's do it.
Okay, so next up, I'm actually really honored that David is going to let me be the first person to show cooking on the stream, which will make me the world's first crafter on a stream, and now the first cooker. But cook? Well, David, no, thank you. And obviously, I'm just kidding. It's really exciting to show off some of the hard work David has been doing with the programming team and the design team around this. So this is something, before we begin, that I want everyone to know is new, is still under development. And our pre-alpha VIP testers in March are going to be able to experience this and play around and test it, which is exciting. So let's get to it. This is a cooking campfire. There are a few of them scattered around.
I will say, okay, I'm back into it because there's a lot of potential for cooking to be interesting in like a mini gamey sort of way. There's so much more that could happen when you're cooking as opposed to when you're mining an inanimate rock. Like, I can say this firsthand experience, like in real life, I'm not that good of a cook. My wife is a fantastic cook, and I try hard. I try to learn, and I try to impress her when I have the chance. But let me tell you, when I'm in the kitchen, it can be chaos. Like, depending on what you're doing. If I'm really trying to like put together a nice meal, there's lots of different things to juggle. There's things that you have to time correctly. You have to watch them closely so they don't get burned or whatever the case may be. Like, there's a lot that could go wrong there. And that I could definitely see being a pretty interesting mini game. So curious to see what they have here for this.
Thrown fast at the moment, and obviously as the game continues to build out, you'll find these all over the world in various types and forms, and I'm sure there's more to that, but for now, this is where we're at. Now what you do is you click on the fire and treat it basically just like you would treat a forge for smelting or anything like that, and you're going to get your crafting schematics that are available to you, and we, in our inventory, let me pull that up, have this campfire cooking set, so that allows us to use that in here by it just being in our inventory. So what you do is if you click on that, you're going to have the ability to add in different elements to create food. Now, once again, please remember this is pretty early on. And for now, you're going to get to actually see what you'll create before you create it. That's going to change, but for testing, we wanted to get this in working. So let's show a few combinations of what you can expect from cooking. So if you look at the ingredients I have, once again, here I have a fresh apple, a golden walnut, ruddy mushrooms, and bear meat. Gotta have some bear meat, right? And these are essentially going to...
So in regards to people saying that the crafting, the cooking station looks too small, like, it's worth pointing out that what I do know, very little I know about cooking in Pantheon, is that, like, this is just one example of crafting or cooking stations specifically. Like, this is just out in the world. Like, there's just this campfire. Like, you might find this in like a bandit camp or something like that. And it's not like all cooking stations will look like this. This is just out in the wild, which is pretty unique as far as crafting professions go. Like, that's one of the benefits to being a provisioner, is the what it's called in Pantheon. that you don't have to be in like a town or a city to do it. Like you would, like to be a blacksmith or something. You're probably not gonna just find an anvil out in the wilderness. Now, you might in some cases, but certainly not as common as a campfire, right? So, and that's intentional because with the way that food and consumable work in Pantheon, it's intended that one of the benefits of being a provisioner is that you can just whip something up real quick for your group, like for whatever the situation calls for, which is pretty cool. Like you can imagine, like if you're on an adventure and you're resting for the night and you're thinking about what the next day is gonna hold, you set up a little campfire and maybe like whip up together real quick like a little stew or something that will give you benefits against frigid climates or something like that. And that's a provisioner reacting to the situation at hand, and that's something that they can share with the rest of their group. That's like a benefit for their group. It's almost kind of like a mini support class in that sense. As you're out in the wilderness, you're like picking these like little mushrooms and fruits and nuts and stuff like that, and just whipping them up real quick over a campfire. Like that's pretty cool in my opinion, as opposed to doing bigger projects like in a town. I'm not going to say that you can't have like a big like oven or something in town, to maybe, for your bigger like cakes or whatever that you put together. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there as, based on some of the previous conversations that they've had about professions and cooking specifically. This is just campfires are just one aspect of that. But again, yeah, Nerd says looks pretty huge to me. Again, I'm still convinced that they took the halfling and made it even smaller. Like Minus just looks tiny everywhere he goes in this stream. All right, so let's get into cooking. So the mining and that whole mini game that was gathering to get the materials, and now once we have materials, in this case food, now let's get into the crafting side of things.
Fit into different categories here within this campfire cooking set. So if I right click it, it'll obviously go into fruit for my apple. Now apples can be found laying around in the world. We currently have a vendor in the game that will actually sell some of these items. And then in the future, you'll be able to harvest them through different means. You'll be able to collect them from enemies like bear meat. So there's going to be a lot of different ways to collect things you'll be able to use as food. So once again, we have fruit in there. Let's go ahead and toss a golden walnut in. Now you can see at this point, I am able to click craft, and you will see that this combination makes apple nut mix. So if I consume this item, I will gain a lasting effect. This one gives me +1 strength, an increase to my health and mana when resting, and it's for 30 minutes. So if I craft that, let's hope I'm successful. And there you go. I have my apple nut mix with the same effects that it says there. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in my bag. Well, or I'm just going to eat it. So that, I don't know why I right-clicked and thought that. So the next thing here is, let's see if we take that walnut now. Let's go ahead and remove these out. And we take the walnut and we put it with a mushroom. So now this will give us a nutty shroom salad. So if we consume this item to gain a lasting effect, we'll get 1 extra stamina. And again, the increase to health and mana while resting, and again for 30 minutes. The same thing if we craft that.
So there's a little bit of experimentation involved.
This time I am going to put that in my bag. And finally, let's do one more. I don't want to spoil everything, but let's go with bear meat and, I don't know, an apple. There we go. Bear chops. Probably one of my favorite food items. Not for what it does, just because it's helping us thin the bear population. So bear chops here are going to give us plus 10 to endurance. That's also going to give us the health and mana while resting for 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and craft that. And there it is in my inventory. A pretty awesome system. This is just newly implemented. Again, will be tested for the first time by our VIP testers. And for more, let's turn it over to David to really talk about the future of cooking. All right, David, before we jump in, just as I said in that video, in case it wasn't clear, the fact that a recipe comes up like that is just early implementation. We are not going to tell you a recipe unless you've created it. So, David, you could talk a little bit more about cooking. Why don't you talk about what the intent is here, and you can layer in anything else from that video you wanted to clarify or talk about what's coming in the future.
Sure, thanks. For cooking, we really want to emphasize discovery, and that comes in two ways. The first is finding different ingredients that you can use out there in the world. Maybe you kill a new kind of monster and you get a new kind of meat from it, or maybe you find a plant that you can harvest and you get something, some new kind of herb or something that you can use in cooking. We want that to be an exciting event when you find something new that you've never used before. In the final analysis, in the final version, each of those different ingredients that you collect will have different effects on the food that you create. So they might add different kinds of bonuses or do different things, and you won't know what that ingredient actually does until you actually try to use it in cooking with something else. So it'll be very discovery based. The other area where discovery will be important is actually creating the food items themselves, because obviously creating a food item doesn't take just one ingredient. It takes several ingredients. And so as you use them in different combinations and create different kinds of food, you're going to discover all sorts of new and interesting and hopefully potentially useful effects that you can create through cooking. So imagine that if you really want to get into it, you can start to kind of build up that body of knowledge, and we'll provide some kind of a journal in game to help you keep track of all of it. But you can build up that knowledge, and then when somebody says, "Man, I am playing a wizard, and I really need some kind of food that really helps me as a wizard," you actually are the person that can say, "Oh, I know what you need. Let me go help you make that," or "Here's what I need you to bring me to make you that wizard food." So it's another way to come back to that social value, to making it something that you can do that has value to other players as well. And the cool thing about it is, even if you don't go that far with it, right? Even if you only dabble and you just kind of sit down in a campfire from time to time and throw some stuff together, you'll still constantly be discovering new things that you can make. And hopefully that keeps it really interesting and fun for everyone.
That's excellent. I just like the whole throw stuff together, see what you get. Do you think that with the future implementation, so since you won't know if it's going to make something or not, if you try to do it, you could potentially lose some of those if it's not a proper recipe? Is that where you might be heading?
Not if it's if it's just not a valid combination, it's just not going to let you proceed. I'm not going to cause people to lose ingredients en masse just by trying different combinations. But for all of our crafting, what you saw in the video is the first stage, which is putting ingredients together and getting something out of it. And you just click that button and it creates the item. The next stage of crafting that's not in there yet is what I call the challenge phase. And so what will eventually happen is when you click that button, you will be taken to a challenge of some sort that you have to complete in order to successfully craft the item.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be true for cooking, it'll be true for alchemy, it'll be true for blacksmithing, for all of our other professions. There will be a challenge associated with that profession. And that's where your skill, your tools, your equipment, that's where all that stuff comes into play. The techniques that you know and that you can use during that process. That'll be that challenge phase. And if you succeed at that challenge phase, you get the item you were looking to create. If you fail at that challenge phase, there will be a chance that you might lose some of your ingredients. Probably not all of them. And that chance might be influenced by what it is that you're making and whether that's, something that required really rare stuff or whatever. We're not looking to overly penalize people, but there will be a chance to lose some ingredients if you fail that challenge.
Could I potentially make burned bear food? Like, is that possible? Maybe affect the result of what comes out, like between like a perfect cook or maybe.
Not at first, but we could eventually go there if we wanted to. Then again, like blackened bear salad actually sounds kind of nice. So
hey, maybe. Hey, I'll take it. I think one of the cool things that you've talked about with me, as we've been talking through this process, is that what's going to be really cool is, we've been doing a lot of testing in the human areas. So we've been in Throne Fast, AVP. But I think what's interesting is, we're seeing the ingredients that would live there, whether that's apples or whatever would be in those types of biomes. And we've talked about biomes a lot in the last few streams and on Parting the Veil. Like, biomes has been a pretty big topic the last few months, even I'd say this year. So just think about when you start in Wild's End, that's a biome that's going to be just incredibly different. Wildlife that's extraordinarily oversized, different types of environments. And what's going to be neat is, like, when you're a halfling starting out, you have completely different ingredients you're working with. So when you do work your way to that human area and Throne Fast, you're like, oh, now I have an apple. I didn't have this before. What can I combine an apple with from the halfling society? So I know you've talked a lot about that. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can do things if I stay in my area. But the more I go out and the more I search and the more I'm in different biomes, I'm going to find all these different things that's going to just open up the realm of possibility for combinations. So
yeah, it's and that's one of the things that we want to actually we want each region of the world to really feel like it has something to offer you if you go there and explore. So there's many ways to do that. Content is obviously one of those ways, but even just something as simple as having a few different gathering resources available that are region specific. If I'm a human and I head over to Fairthale, all of a sudden I'm finding new things that I can cook with that I've never had access to, like you observed. Or where it really gets interesting is some of the less civilized areas of the world, shall we say. Some of those areas that are tougher, that are higher level, that are harder to get to, those might have really unique and special ingredients in them that you can't find anywhere else. And so, if you as a player decide to, let's say, go explore the Rones, you might find something in the Rones that doesn't grow anywhere else, and has a really interesting effect associated with it that allows you to make things that nobody else might ever have seen before. So really, again, supporting that sense of discovery. Like, there should be if you go to a new place, you should find something new and interesting and unique there. And cooking is one way that we can influence that, although certainly not the only way.
I have to ask a question from the chat. We're live. We're on Twitch. If you're here live, you're participating. Pretty cool question from the chat. Can I make something that I use then in a different ingredient or in a different recipe potentially?
Potentially, yeah. It's right now we're obviously in the very early stages, and so there's that's not quite working yet. Like you can't make a food and then use it to make another food, but it is planned.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
It is absolutely planned that you'll be able to do that.
I love it. I think that's great. Thanks for the great question in chat there. Well, the only other thing I just wanted to give a shout out to the VIP testers and show.
I gotta say though that this sounds cool. And Nimrel says, I wonder if alchemy will be similar to what we saw with cooking, in that, like I said, my immediate reaction was like, it's experimental. There's a sense of experimentation to it, where, again, if it's in actual implementation, when it doesn't show you exactly what it will create when you combine those things, it takes a little bit of trial and error there. We have to throw things together and see what you get. And I think alchemy would be another profession where that would make a lot of sense. And it's funny you mentioned that, because another thing that came to mind here, again, let's tie it back to Skyrim, was another thing that Skyrim did so well that was really interesting to me, was the experimental nature of alchemy, where you got some new herb or something that you had never discovered before. Like, you didn't know what it did, and you would have to actually like nibble on the herb to see what sort of effect it had on you. And it could be maybe it did like just a little bit of damage to you, or maybe it applied like a poison effect, which, you know, was a short damage over time, or would like tick away. I mean, like pretty minor effects. Like, it didn't last very long. You might only be poisoned for like, I don't know, like 5 seconds or something. But that was the only way to discover like, oh, okay, this has like some damage over time effects, or this has healing effects, or this makes my movement slower, or whatever the case may be. Like, just these really quick little effects that you'd learn the properties that that herb or powder or material has just by like just giving it a little taste, which like is so cool, man, because like that's like how they did it in real life, like back in the pioneer days or the medieval days. Like, the only way to like all the applications that we have for herbs and stuff today, like somebody had to be the guinea pig at some point, and then just like somebody had to be the first one to try it out and just see what happened and hope for the best. Hope it didn't kill you. And that's how you learn, though. And so when you can do things like that in a game, I think that that's really interesting, really satisfying. And yes, you know, you could make an argument that people will solve it and put it up on the wikis and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, yeah, that will always be the case, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done, because not everybody will go to the wiki to just figure it out. Like, it's still trying to preserve as much of that sense of discovery is, I think, a really, really good idea. And then on top of that, hearing their plans of having a sort of like mini game for crafting sounds spot on. Like I said, like we kind of had concluded before, that the mini games, I think, are better suited and make more sense for the crafting profession side of things, where you're actually producing a result. You have your ingredients, and you partake in interact with the mini game, and then you get a product after that. I think that makes way more sense and sounds way more fun than trying to force a mini game into the gathering side of things. Again, not saying that it can't be done well, but it's, I think, harder to do, and they're certainly not there yet from what we've seen. Again, I mean, fishing, if you handle each gathering skill differently, which it seems like each profession will be handled differently too. You know, if you approach each one with their own unique style, as I think you should, there's some potential there for some of them. Like I said, I think fishing, you could probably get away with some sort of challenge, as he says. I think Nefel tries to avoid the word mini game, because that can feel kind of tropey, which is fair. But you know, some sort of challenge that the game presents to you, that you need to overcome with both character skill and player skill. I think that's cool. I could see it with fishing. I can't see it. I just can't see it with mining, really. Because again, giving an inanimate object a lot of hit points and making you just wait and press buttons, it's not a challenge, right? It's just kind of a waste of time, to be honest. So we will see. We'll see if they can improve upon that.
Our friend Annie I mean, it's really like not an exciting video. But do you want to tell? I'm going to put it up on the screen. Do you just want to tell people why we like Annie so much, so when they're testing, they know to look for her? There she is. Talk about her.
So this is Annie Ray, and for those of you that don't know, Annie is a relative of the person who runs the chicken farm, which is that building right behind. And Annie is going to be selling ingredients that can't be found through other places in the game yet. So, for example, one of the things that she sells right now is fish, because we don't have fishing put into the game yet. And so our testers are going to get to really know Annie very well, because every time we do an update and every time we do a new test, Annie's probably going to have a few new things on offer. And the things that she had before will move out to their gathering systems or wherever they're supposed to come from. But this is a way for us to add new ingredients to the game, give you a place that's easy to come find out what's new and what are the new things that have been added in a test that you can try out. So that's Annie.
Yeah, so look for her while you are pre-testing this weekend and you want to get your hands on cooking. Obviously, this is, as Neff has said, this is our first implementation. This will be the first time people will be able to cook in-game, but it's going to grow from here. So all the testers, let us know what you think. Very excited for that for sure. Well, Neff, before we close up here, it's been a super successful stream. You put you and me on a stream, we don't have to worry about time. Sometimes we aim for like a half hour on these or 45 minutes. We have no problem talking. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to add before I wrap this up?
Gosh, you put me on the spot. I think I've already given a few beans, so I don't want to give away too much else. One of the things that we want to do in preparation for actually moving into alpha is to have the basic systems for crafting and gathering all implemented. So that's everything that you just heard us talk about. That's also the finished item crafting, like the blacksmithing and the outfitting, fishing. We want to at least have a basic form of all of those things in place for alpha, so that we can really start seeing how it plays out with our itemization. With a large number of players. So that's something we're working pretty hard on, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to push new stuff into the game every month as we move forward. You guys will see all that progress get reflected in the newsletters, and for those of you that are pre-alpha testers, you'll get to see it in the pre-alpha tests. But I'm looking forward to the day when we can actually open the doors for alpha, and you have all of these systems there that you working together, that you're able to really experience and give us feedback on how it feels as a holistic world, because we really are trying to build a world here. And
holistic.
It's not just about making sure that any one system is fun, but it's making sure that they're all fun together.
Awesome. Well, David, it's always great to talk to you about this. Your passion behind this is what we know will make this a great system. And I think it's what the crafters in our community have always been really excited about, what you bring to it. Your experience in crafting in many MMORPGs, you've always been at the forefront of
I don't know if we're going to get
progression and really digging into these systems. So I just want to say once again, thank you for joining us today, filling in for the other David and showing us what you and the design team have been working on. I really hope everybody's enjoyed this look into crafting and gathering. Be sure to follow us across your favorite social media channels if you're not already, for more updates and development news. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, our forums. We're all over the place. Find us wherever you like to find us. For those of you testing, very excited to see you in the game this weekend. For those who aren't, remember, we're doing monthly testing. So if you want to check out what you can do to support, if you'd like to, go ahead and check out pantheonmmo.com/pledge. But remember, even following us and sharing about the game and being in the chat and being in our Discord, that's all awesome. And it helps us continue to drive the development of Pantheon. We'll see everybody back here on Twitch next Thursday for Parting the Veil, where I will be with our creative director, and I will define important elements related to Pantheon's open world. It's going to be a good one. Do not miss this one. There'll be some pretty meaty topics that will probably be good discussion. Let's leave it to that. David, thank you once again, man. I really appreciate it. And everybody, please take care.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
All right. Yeah, we didn't get bingo. I was kind of afraid of that as we got toward the end there. I honestly wasn't even that close. I was like 2 off in any direction. Oh, he didn't say onward and upward. I don't think I missed any. I might have. Eh. Oh, well. That was still fun, though. Again, super glad that you guys decided to come hang out with me here today. I know it's been a while, so it means a lot to me. Jintaki says, did I happen to miss Explore or Robust? Is that what you're missing? I don't think so. Because I didn't get those either. Is that what you needed to get bingo? I definitely didn't say robust. That one would have stuck out to me if he had said that. I don't think he said explore. Could have, but I didn't hear it. Gulu Gulu says, will you be reacting Friday to this Thursday's stream? Yes, I hope so. I am planning on that. So that's just a couple days away. I know this month's been a little bit weird, a little bit different with scheduling. Again, like I said, I'm gonna try get things back on track as soon as I can here. I appreciate y'all bearing with me and coming and talking about Pantheon with me a little bit today. I think this was a really interesting discussion. I enjoyed it. With crafting and gathering here, like I said, the gathering, particularly mining, very clear to me based on what we saw that it still needs some work. They missed the mark on that, but cooking seems pretty darn awesome. On the crafting side of things, I think they're on the right track with that for sure. So you get the both sides of it in this particular stream. And then yes, in just 2 days, we will reconvene for Parting the Veil, talking about open world with Joppa. That's a topic that I know a lot of us have a lot of thoughts about, so that should be a fun one. So I think we will wrap it up here. We stretched it to 2.5 hours, which I think that is pretty impressive accomplishment for this 48-minute video here. So good stuff, guys. Thank you. I will see you in just 2 very short days. Until then, please, everybody, stay safe, stay curious, and adventure on.